Today I'm with Rick Berthod, and Rick is an incredible blues guitarist. He has shared the stage with B.B. King, Greg Allman, John Mayall, Robin Ford, Etta James, Chris Duarte, and many others. The list just goes on and on. So talk a little bit about some of that. Tell me a little bit, because everybody knows these folks. Everybody knows the Allman Brothers. Everybody knows, of course, B.B. King.
Sure.
My only story with B.B. King is I followed the back of his bus from Odessa to Van Horn one day.
Right.
And it was his tour bus with Lucille on the back.
Yep.
A big painting of Lucille was on the back, B.B. King. So
I've been in that bus a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's it like sharing the stage with some of these people that I just named off?
Well, you always learn something.
Okay.
I mean, it's a learning experience just watching how they work the crowd, how they do what they do, and it's just obvious when you're around people with charisma like that, it can rub off on you. I'm still working on that, but I do shows and everything. But the bottom line is that hanging around those people, it's very humbling, but yet the people that I've hung around with and met, they've treated me with so much respect. B.B. King was one of the nicest men in the world. Albert Collins was the nicest man. Greg was great, Greg Allman. They're all just normal people.
Sure.
Yeah. It's just fun to be involved with something like that.
Right. Well, I guess, and I don't know, I mean, were any of them an influence on you when you were learning to play, or was it something that you had kind of got more into their music after you shared the stage with them? Obviously, you play similar music to them.
Sure.
Your own music is a blues oriented, so y'all all are kind of in that same circle. But how did you get into playing the blues?
Well, it all started. I got my first guitar when I lived in Houston.
Okay.
And I worked for the Houston Chronicle, saved up enough money, went to, trying to think of the music store right offhand, it doesn't matter, Rice Music maybe, and I bought a black Les Paul copy. And I had been listening to the Allman Brothers, and Trapeze was a big band that was huge to me. And I had been going to concerts, but my uncle really was the one that played the music that I play myself today, played for me when I would visit my uncle. He basically turned me on to Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac.
Yes, which you did a tribute album.
My ninth CD was a tribute to Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac, and we just played all Fleetwood Mac songs. But when my uncle played the song "Oh Well,"
yes,
at that guitar riff, it got me, and I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
And I knew that's what I wanted to do.
I can't help about the shape I'm in. I can't sing, I ain't pretty, and my legs are thin. Don't ask me what I think of you. I might not give the answer that you want me to.
And then he played me B.B. King stuff and Rory Gallagher stuff and Allman Brothers, and I loved all that stuff. The B.B. King stuff really hit my heart, and I could see, and as a young guitarist, it was easier to pick up on B.B. King's style. So I always, refer to BB as a huge influence. Albert Collins was a big influence too. He helped me put together my first band in Los Angeles.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about "Oh Well." That's actually one of my favorite songs that they did, and I did go listen to your cover of that, and I thought it
Oh,
was spot on, phenomenal.
well,
So,
thank you.
I suggest you guys, if you love that type of music and you love that song in particular, you should go check out Rick's cover of that. It's really, really good. As a matter of fact, that whole CD is really good. I picked that song out because I know that song so well, and as he said, "Oh well," yeah, it's great. So go check that one out. So, I did read, I think that you were like a lot of guitar players, and the first song that you learned to play was "Smoke on the Water."
Exactly.
Okay, but let's go beyond that. Let's say beyond that one, what would you say would probably have been your most technical learning, that when you were learning something a little more technical and you were really putting your chops together, what would you say was the song that you really spent a lot of time working on to master?
Probably the Allman Brothers' Dreams, Dwayne Allman.
Okay.
Um, at one point, I played that note for note. There was a bunch of stuff that I've learned note for note, and over the years, it kind of, if I go play that song today, my own style works into it. Um, Obviously, I spent a lot of time when I was young, super young, learning. I learned how to play Stairway to Heaven, and
Okay.
I had a couple of lessons. I don't know, I had probably 10 lessons from two different teachers, one in Moline, Illinois, Mike Wallace, genius, great guitar player. Um, and that was something that took me a long time to learn how to play Stairway to Heaven. I think when you're young, your fingers don't move like that,
That's true.
right?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I can relate to that because I remember having a really hard time learning to just keep my fingers where they needed to be to keep it from being dead strings.
And that was a finger picking thing.
Yes,
And so that helped to this day.
sure.
I use a pick now, but I do use um, all three of these fingers also, kind of a hybrid thing at times.
Okay.
I use those to make it a very nice big voicing of certain chords. And
Right.
even my lead playing, I tend to use two fingers sometimes.
Yeah. So you did say, and I do know from listening to some of your music, is that you do play some of the covers and some of the things that people know. And I did notice that you do interject kind of your own style to that. It's not a note for note copy of the cover that you're doing. So when you do that, I know, some people they want to hear it exactly, but have you ever got any blowback from people saying, "Man, you shouldn't be putting your own style into that. You should be playing it exactly the way it sounds"?
No, I never have. In fact, Greg Allman told me, he goes, I don't want you to sound like Dickie Beggs.
Great.
Because I always loved Dickie's playing, and I did some shows with Greg Allman, a bunch of shows in Colorado and on the West Coast, and he said, "You be yourself. You always be yourself. Yes, you take all those influences, you put them in a bowl, mix them up in the salad, and it comes out you. You got
Right.
to just do your thing.
Right.
There's certain phrases and certain little things that you need to stay true to the record, but if BB King were playing a Jimi Hendrix song, he's going to sound like BB King.
Yeah.
Um, but he'll play the certain things that need to be played.
Right.
But I've always there's so many great people that can copy stuff and they sound just like the jukebox. I've always just learned what I needed to learn and then and did my own thing, and it works for me because I basically learned to play by ear except for those few lessons.
Right.
So
So in June of 2017, you were inducted into the Las Vegas Blues Hall of Fame by Rita King. Tell us about that experience.
life changing.
Yeah.
Her dad was one of the sweetest people, and Rita's the same way. And to know people with a big heart, and the honor, obviously, to be inducted into any Hall of Fame or to receive any award for guitar playing is a huge, huge thing, and it was life-changing, and we did that at one of the shows. I forgot who I was opening up for, but it was on a big stage in Las Vegas, Nevada, and she came up on stage and inducted me. But anyway, it was just life-changing moment, and her and her dad are the same. It's
Yeah.
just so cool.
Because I did read that you had opened for BB King, and that you were like one of a couple of acts I think that were going to open for him, and he liked you so well. He liked what you guys were doing so well. He asked you to open up a second night, so you had to scramble to get a hold of the booker or whoever it was to arrange that in order to make that happen. So that had to have been that had to have been something. What about the group that got kicked so that you could get in there?
Well, he was there 2 nights in a row. This is the
Okay.
first 2 times I opened for BB. I've opened for him a number of times, but they only booked an opening band the first night because
Okay.
he was doing 2 shows. And I don't know if he was getting in town late or whatever, but we did the show and he acknowledged me on his set and thanked me. And then we ended up on his bus after that. And I had him sign a all original 1960 Gibson 335 that I owned at the time. It had
Right.
one PAF pickup. And anyway, he said, "You know, I really like you." We're in the back of the bus, the whole band. And he signed the guitar and he goes, "I'd like for are you opening for us tomorrow?" And I said, "No, they only booked us for one." And he goes, "I'd like to have you open tomorrow." And I said, "Well, hang on one second, BB." And I left the guys in with the band in the back of the bus with BB, and I went inside. I got the manager, and I brought him to BB's bus, and I said, "BB wants us to open tomorrow," and it was a done deal. I
Okay.
mean, when the king says something like that, that's a cool thing.
It's going to happen too.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet that was a great experience. I can just imagine how you guys must have felt to get to do that twice in a row. That's pretty cool.
That's just how he was, just a special person with a big heart, always encouraging young talent.
Yeah,
Up until the day he passed, he was always encouraging young talent and artists.
that's awesome. So I'm going to take it from listening to you speak and some of the things I've read that probably that was probably your most triumphant memory was opening for BB. Even and I know you've opened for some other and played the stage with some really great names. Robin Ford comes to mind in that list, and some of those others. And
Sure.
so I have to think that seems to probably hold the greatest memory for you.
It does. And how appropriate I have the BB King shirt on.
Nice.
BB was a special person. And, you know, it's something that was life changing as the induction to the Hall of Fame. Just him acknowledging that I could play,
Right.
you know, that just is life changing.
Yeah.
And yes, that was a big one. I've had some other highlights, but that's still the biggest.
Yeah. And so you and let me and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've recorded 9 albums.
I have recorded 9 albums, yes.
And how long of a time span is that go? How far back does that catalog go up to the present?
1988. In fact, we just recorded 12 songs for my 10th CD, which
Okay.
should be out sometime by July or August.
Okay.
There was a year that there was 11 years where I didn't put out any music.
Okay.
But yes, it's 1988 was my first release on an LP called Rock, Rhythm and Blues.
Okay.
And we recorded, on that record, I think there were 7 original tunes and we covered Freddie King's Hideaway.
Okay.
There's a story there too. And then we recorded Midnight Hour on that particular LP. And there's a story about that if you got a second.
Absolutely.
So Steve Cropper wrote Midnight Hour with Wilson Pickett.
Okay.
And it was Booker T and Steve Cropper and Duck Dunn were the guys that backed all those guys, Albert King and on a lot of those recordings. And we had, this record had been out for about a year, and Booker T was playing in Redondo Beach, California. I happened to live in uh, the LA area for a long time, and I thought, you know, I'm going to go to this show and I'm going to give Steve a copy of my version of Midnight Hour. And I waited around for him, and he came downstairs, and I said, "Hey, Steve, you know, big fan, and I wanted to just let you know I recorded one of your songs." You know, I was terrified because what I had always heard is if you record somebody's song without permission, and we didn't get permission for that. And this was 1988, and when I recorded it, and I was slightly worried what he would say, and I handed him the LP, and it says Midnight Hour, Steve Cropper and Wilson Pickett. And then right under that, we recorded the Freddie King song Hideaway. And he said, "Oh, you recorded Hideaway." You know, he didn't even care that I recorded his song. He's, well, as a guitar player, Freddie King was another of the best.
Right.
You know, so he was, and we talked a little bit about that. And the great bass player, you know, and obviously Steve Cropper was in the movie The Blues Brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and the bass player that night was Duck Dunn. He was also in the Blues Brothers band and movie. They were both, and it was just nice to be treated like an equal.
Right.
And I was a kid. I mean, I'm older now, but 88, 89, that was very cool to have Steve Cropper just not even care that I recorded this song. He was more interested in me playing the Freddie King guitar stuff.
Right. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if you had to like tell me how many original songs you think you've written and recorded of your own over the years?
Over 60.
Over 60 originals.
Yes. And in fact, that's might be a little higher now. It might even be 70 because I just recorded 2 new songs on this last record that I just wrote 2 new songs in the last 6 months.
Okay.
So on this last record that's gonna be out in July or so, we recorded 12 songs and 10 of them are originals.
Okay.
We did a cover song by the great Albert Collins, who is another friend of mine, and we also recorded "Ain't No Sunshine," and we did an instrumental version of that.
Okay.
You know, so
That'd be fun to hear.
yeah, it's a
It's a
great
good song. It's a great song.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you had to choose between originals or covers, what would you rather do?
original music.
Of course.
Uh, I play lots of shows where I feel like I need to play covers, and you know, there's places that I play that require only originals.
Okay.
There's a couple places I play that is it ASCAP, one of those.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come and they'll bug the club and try to get them to pay when they have cover bands playing original songs, which is just crazy, right?
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is.
so they hire a cover band and they're playing cover songs, and then ASCAP wants to be paid.
Yeah.
So there's certain clubs that want original songs. And when I play festivals, I play original songs. I will play stuff off the Fleetwood Mac tribute CD because that was actually one of my biggest CDs, besides the one that was #1 in France, the 8th CD. I had a CD called Peripheral Vision. This was before the tribute to Peter Green, and for 4 months it was #1 in France.
Interesting album cover on that one too.
Well, thank you. I designed that cover.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. You guys, I'll put a picture up so you guys can see what this CD cover looks like. It's interesting.
And that's all originals on that. All my records are all originals. If we cover something, it's a cover song of somebody that's influenced me.
Right. So how many shows you doing right now?
This month, I think I have 16 shows. I play a lot, but I travel,
Yeah.
so that's how I'm able to keep busy. If I were to stay in Las Vegas, it's not like it was before the pandemic. before the pandemic, for 7 years, I played every Monday at the House of Blues. So I had a regular Monday show. And then I had a every other Thursday opening for the national touring bands at Casino Boulder Station. And then the pandemic hit and it changed. So what happened there is I felt like, well, it's time to just go out and move out of playing in California, Colorado. I go into the Midwest. I do festivals everywhere. I'm headlining a festival. I headlined a festival last August in Quincy, Illinois, and I'm headlining a festival in Fremont, Florida on March 29th. And there's like 7 bands, and so I get out and I'm doing my thing.
That's
That's
awesome.
all I can do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We have a lot of young beginner guitar players and musicians that frequent our stores, come in and purchase these instruments like you see behind you. So if you had some advice that you could give to someone that's wanting to learn to play or they're just starting out, what would be Rick's advice for that young player? What would you suggest that they do? How would you tell them to go about it?
Well, practice as many hours as you can get in. Decide what kind of music you enjoy and pursue that for a little bit, and then branch off and learn about where that music came from. But I think the big thing is to keep your hands on the instrument, keep playing, listen to all styles of music, and styles change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I grew up listening to a lot of rock stuff, and now I love country. I love Southern rock. I love blues. I love jazz.
Right.
Eh, can I play jazz? No, but I try to.
Sure.
You know.
No, that's
Um,
great.
but yeah, I think it's all about just finding a passion and just going for it and keeping your head down. Just do the work. I think it's a work ethic thing.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So, favorite gear. What's your favorite? What's your favorite gear right now?
Oh boy.
What are you
I'm a
what's Rick playing?
I'm a I'm a gear freak, and a vintage guy. I tour with certain guitars because they're not as valuable as my vintage instruments. But my favorite guitar right now is a 1961 Les Paul, Gibson Les Paul, and with PAF pickups. I also have a '59 Telecaster,
Okay.
and um, and I've got some other old Gibson guitars and old Fender guitars. I play, I was a Fender guy for many, many years, and I still play Fenders. On this tour, I don't have a Fender with me. I have 2 Gibsons with me. I have a 345
Okay.
and I have a Gold Top Les Paul, both custom shop instruments, which are amazing. And by the way, I worked at Fender for like 5 years.
Okay.
That's a funny story if you got a
Go
second.
go
So,
ahead.
I moved to California, right? And I'm a guitar player and I'm playing shows, but I thought, wow, I'd like to work at Fender. So I applied for a job and I started testing and setting up guitars. Um, Backstory on this is when I lived in Illinois and grew up, I went through a 4-year tool and die apprenticeship. I'm a tool and die maker by trade.
Okay.
And and it's progressed into I do engineering, and I do work for Seymour Duncan right now too, and I do work for G&L and Sir Guitars. I build tooling and design tooling for them when I'm not on tour.
Right.
So anyway, I go put in my application at Fender. They weren't looking for a tool and die maker, so to get my foot in the door, I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and set up and test guitars. So I did that for 6 weeks. We were supposed to set up 15 to 17 guitars in an 8-hour shift. They would come to each person. There's about 12 of us that were in the final area, and it would come without the nut cut and loose strings. We had to set the intonation, we had to set the pickup height, we had to adjust the truss rod, and we had to cut slots in the nut for the strings. then we play it, and then we'd put it on a rack, and it'd go to a final guy that would fill out the paperwork, and then it'd be shipped. And after about 6 to 8 weeks of that, I went into the big guy's office, which was Dan Smith. If you're a Fender historian, you'll know who Dan Smith is. And I said, "Hey Dan, you know, I took this position in setting up guitars because I want to get my foot in the door. You know, I'm a tool and die maker," and I handed him my resume. I was terrified, but I went in there at break time, and he said, "Really?" And 2 weeks later, they moved me to the tool room, and I was doing work and building tooling for the custom shop and production, and I was there when Fender bought Guild, and they shipped all the tooling from Westerly, Rhode Island, and no one knew how the tooling worked. They just bought the company, and there was Mike Shannon and myself, and there was one other gentleman from the custom shop. We had to figure out how to build Guild guitars,
Okay.
and it was a great experience.
I'll bet.
It was a great experience, and I was there for almost 6 years.
That's pretty good. Long time.
I would. We had a flexible schedule where, as long as we worked 8 hours a day, and I would go play shows in Hollywood or all over Los Angeles, and I'd get a hotel room right by Fender. I'd drive straight to the hotel room, sleep 3 hours, and go to work at Fender.
Now, I bet that really helped out when you're working and setting up your own guitars, and makes it a little easier where you don't probably have to take them into somebody to set them up.
I do front work, everything.
Yeah.
I fix guitars too.
Well, what about amps and effects? What are you using for amps and effects right now?
I have a bunch of old Fender stuff, but right now I'm touring with a Marshall head,
Okay.
and I have just 4 pedals that I'm using right now. I have every pedal, you know that guitar. I have everything, but on certain tours and live, I tend to narrow it down. I do feel the signal path when you get more than 6, 7 pedals, you lose a little bit of signal going into the amplifier. But I've got a Zen Drive, which is an old pedal that Robin Ford kind of made famous. And then I have a Marshall pedal, which is made by Schnauz out of Denver. It's a boutique pedal. And then I have an Echoplex pedal delay. And then I have a reverb pedal for the blues.
Right.
Now, if I play other music, I use all my pedals.
Right.
But for this particular thing, I'm just doing that.
Gotcha. So you have a little footboard rig that you carry with you?
I have 2 pedal boards with me right now, and both of them just have 4 pedals on them. I have a backup, and I also have an Analog Man Prince of Tone on one of them. And then there's another company out of California, West Coast Pedals. I have the Blue Highway pedal on there. And but you know, I have the pedals, every pedal that you have right here, I have those.
Right.
And all the Boss stuff, and I love all those pedals. You know, so I don't know if it's a boredom thing, but I think guitar players like to have access to different sounds.
I think so too. Well, anything else you want to share with our audience, Rick?
I just want to say thank you for having me. This is an honor.
I appreciate you coming in and visiting with me. I'm going to put some information up on the screen for everybody that's interested in going to listen to some of Rick's music. I highly suggest that you check out some of his videos. He has a website. I'll put the link to that here. You guys go visit the website. You can purchase his CDs, listen to his music. It is some really great stuff, and it's an honor to have you in our store today. So
thank you, Rick.
Thank you for sitting with me and visiting today.
I appreciate you having me here. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, you guys, go check it out.
See you.